Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. We have a crazy schedules in the next couple weeks, so I appreciate your flexibility and for being here on a different time. I am actually, poor Shelly's gonna kill me because she left the notes on my desk. And hey, Bailey, she left the notes on my desk, and so hey, Nathan. But I'm not in my office. I have not had a chance to go in my office. It has been a crazy day. So I'm getting the notes up here to look at least for the questions for today. So the announcements probably that she would have given me, hey, Mark and Beth, the announcements she probably would have given me are things like Meg is speaking at a big Cleveland event this week, Thursday and Friday. I am off to the Alexa Wealth and Real Estate Cruise on Thursday this week. Yes, I'm going on a cruise and I'm going to have fun. And we'll talk about that in a minute. That's happening. There's lots happening. But poor Shelly, shoot, I didn't get her list because I just didn't get it. So anyway, hi. Today we're talking, and I just got off a sales call, so I'm a little crazy. Prospect call. So the question today is really about remote work, and I submitted an article to Forbes about this because the COVID-19 / coronavirus situation is making everybody a little nuts, frankly. And whether you are in the camp of everyone should quarantine all over the place, or in the camp of it's not that big a deal, go live your life, the reality of the situation is people are, there are huge organizations and huge educational facilities and campuses of government and schools and everything that are closing to restrict the spread of COVID-19. So what happens is, everyone gets worried. So everyone's getting worried, and then let's say that you want to close your business, or one of the challenges I just was speaking with a client about this morning was he's a medical doctor and they do kind of orthopedic work. And so he's afraid patients won't want to come in to do follow-up assessments because they're afraid to leave their house, either because they're sick or because they're afraid of getting sick. So, and he said, actually, frankly, his number one problem is that they're going to close, his fear is they're going to close the schools, and then he's not going to have enough personnel to actually do the work they need to do. So there's just a huge amount of disruption and anxiety about what COVID-19 means for business. And of course, we're not even talking about like the markets and all that stuff. I smile because I have a colleague who is just starting out. He's a young man, young married couple. And he was saying, this is a great time to not be in the stock market, because he was sort of celebrating that he couldn't afford to own stock. So that was funny. But really, if we leave even that out of it, there's just a huge amount of unknown and anxiety, and you see that being played out. And so, especially for business. So I'm just looking through the questions about, so this brings up the idea of remote work. And so if you have to work remotely, you choose to work remotely, or let's say you run a business and you have to tell your people to work remotely, what does that mean? How does it work? How are people dealing with it or not? What should you be prepared for? So that's kind of the thing today. Let's see. There's 4 questions, and I like them all, and I'm just reading through them. So I think the first thing I'll do quickly is talk about what are the typical challenges that you should think through before you even have to make this decision. Because I think even without COVID-19 considerations, it's probably something you've thought of before, maybe you already do. I just got a personal Facebook message actually from an old friend who's been working from home essentially for 10 years. And she's now asking me, like, I feel isolated. I'm feeling like I'm trying to communicate by keyboard, and that's just not very effective. So what should I do? And I was really surprised because she is a woman who is really self-driven and I would never have imagined that she would be expressing this feeling of isolation. So long term, it can really get you too. So let's just talk about remote work quickly, and then we'll get back into the COVID-19 situation. So remote work, the trick about understanding remote work and how it works well is you want to think about a couple things. People that are team driven, so stabilizers and fixers, they will not enjoy remote work in a long-term situation. So when I started working for myself, I'm a fixer, so I'm team driven. I love working in a team. I love having a whiteboard and having everyone around and sharing ideas and all that stuff. And so for me, working for myself, and I felt very isolated. And before that, I actually worked by myself, but I rented an office in a space where there was other humans. And so that kind of satisfied my need for that connection, even though my work was not involved with them, which is why co-working spaces are probably so popular. So know your team, know your people. Team-driven people will not be very successful at home. And when I mean not successful, I don't mean that they won't get their work done. What I do mean is they won't like it. Their productivity will probably go down. And it'll be really hard to keep everybody on the same page because they love constantly checking in with everybody. Self-driven people will do probably better immediately at home because they don't mind being on their own. But what I find is the longer the team is broken apart, no matter where they are on the scatter plot, the more the team falls apart as a group. So individually, you can evaluate people. Okay, well, my independent or my organizer might work better at home, but often that means they have the team dynamic and the conflict that happens might get worse because everyone just needs to have that connection to create rapport and trust. So if you're far away and you're not already a team person, then it's very easy to start being distrustful or to just figure that you'll just do it the way you want to do it, kind of thing. Now, and team-driven people will sort of also struggle for the opposite reasons. They don't have their people around them. When I was working by myself for a long time as a consultant, I kicked ass at it. I made a ton of money. I loved working for my clients, but I just didn't like it. And that was, in the end, is what made me not do it because I just didn't enjoy it. It made me reach out to Meg, and then Meg and I established Rose Group. So that's the first thing to know about your people in remote work. The other thing is the chaos people will deal with remote work better on a short-term basis than the team-driven, than the stabilizers and organizers. So if we think of the other side, so we think of the chaos people, they'll be like, sure, we'll figure it out as we go, no problem. And the order-tolerant people will probably tell you that too, but they're going to be much more worried about it. And they're going to really struggle because they thrive on routine and expected norms and the plan and all of that stuff. So remote work in general has its challenges, as you can see. And so if you do remote work, you actually have to have more planned team meetings than you normally would because there's no in-hallway conversation. There's no running into each other. There's no, hey, how's it going, over coffee, right, in the morning. So you actually have to have more structured communication when you have remote work. That's the number one thing that people don't do. They send their people out into the landscape and then they don't talk to them, not as often as they should. I just was on a phone call this morning with the client. They meet by Zoom like this weekly, and then they meet in person once a month. And he's like, we just can't get along. And I'm like, big surprise, you only see each other once a month. Like, that is really hard, really hard. So that's remote work generally. And it takes usually quite a bit of thought and quite a bit of planning and an understanding of who you have on your team and what the pitfalls can be. It's also a great benefit, of course, flexible schedules and easier, you don't have to find after school care perhaps for kids and all kinds of things. So it's all good. There's a lot of good to it, but there is a lot of pitfalls that don't get addressed. When it comes to the COVID-19 thing, let's talk about that specifically. All right, so how can I prepare my team for the possibility of temporary work temporary remote work. And then this kind of, I'm going to answer another question at the same time, which is how can knowing the culture type of each of my team members help me do that? Because those things in my mind are like interwoven. So in the COVID environment, so let's transition over to today and what people are dealing with today. The very first thing you're going to find is that there will be, people are already freaking out about it, which increases everyone's stress level, right? And when everyone's stress level increases, that makes, already that means that your productivity is going down, I promise you, because everyone's sitting around talking about it. I can't believe how much in our office, we've sat around and chatted about this COVID-19 thing, mostly because we have travel, but still we're constantly talking about, well, do we believe this person saying, well, that's panicking? Do we believe this person who's saying, don't worry, like, how do we process this? Where do we stand? What is how does our personal philosophy integrate with our work philosophy? Oh my gosh, ad nauseum. And I'm sure you guys have done it too. So your productivity is going down for sure already. And what happens when the decision is made for you, or you make the decision to keep your people home and have them work remotely, is it means that there is some kind of evidence in your community. I'm making a note so I don't forget something. It means there's something going on in your community that's scaring people, right? And that's why you're staying home. And so it jacks up that stress level, first of all. And then you're telling people, go home and work from home, and without knowing often when you're coming back. And that can be a crippling environment for order tolerant people. And that's not to say that that's because they can't handle stuff. It's because they are just not wired for that level of chaos. Even for chaotic people, that is a hugely stressful thing, and probably people won't handle it well. So when you think about your order tolerant people, they might really be stressed out about it, to the point of not being able to do much at all. So when we think about our order tolerant friends, let's talk about stabilizers, because each culture type is going to need different support and different things to process. So a stabilizer is order tolerant and team driven. So the team driven people, you are going to need to reach out to them, because what they'll be doing at home, whether they're chaos driven or not, is team stabilizers will be calling all of their friends. Hey, what's going on with you? Have you heard anything? What's happening? I don't know. What do you know? What do you know? I'm like, I told somebody the other day, if everyone works from home everywhere, I have to plug my phone in, or everyone's electric bill is going to go through the roof, because I'm going to be on that damn thing all the time. And so that's what happens. So, and stabilizers, the chaos of stabilizers, will really throw them for a loop. So what you want to do is create a plan, right? Before you say, okay, everybody go work from home, I want you to think about how long you want them to work from home, what you expect them to do there, what you expect the team leads or team, how are they going to communicate? Can you share phone numbers? Some corporations don't even have personal phone numbers, like mobile numbers on file. So how are you going to reach them? Just by email? A lot of people use Slack these days. But Slack is a good tool for tactical communication, terrible tool for team and getting things done in a real way. So for team driven people anyway. So you need to have a plan. Now it might be that what you say is, we're going to work from home for this week. And what I need you to do is, I need everybody to dial into this conference call on whatever blah blah day, and at 8 o'clock every morning or 10:30 every morning, we're going to have a quick touch base about what's new, what's going on, how everyone's doing. Now that feels onerous, possibly, for our self-driven brethren, but that is what you have to do. You have got to communicate. And I tell you, when people are stressed out, email is the worst. Because if you send out an email that says, hey, nothing changed, we're still going to come back next Monday, don't worry about what's going on, we've got it handled, or whatever, we'll keep you posted. It's shocking how much different you can read that depending on the person, right? It might be that some people feel like, okay, that's all I need to know. We're still going to go back to work Monday. And some people will feel like that's callous and not caring enough. They didn't ask me how I was doing. They didn't say, hey, I hope you guys are doing okay. Like, and if you have a conversation, those things come across. So plan on having some kind of conference call set up, something. So go out to Zoom, go out to conferencecall.com, whatever. I don't know. I'm just making that up. I assume that exists. Go set up some kind of group calling possibility. If you have a small team, then maybe you can just all call each other's phone and do the magic merge call thing that sometimes works. So really think about what that looks like and how you're going to keep in touch with everybody. And that's your own team. So stabilizers will need a plan, and they will need constant check-in. And since most of us have stabilizers in our organization, that's just a really good place to start. Fixers, they're going to need the check-in. They're going to be a little more okay about the chaos, but they are probably in a team with other kinds of people. So again, it might be best to address the biggest need generally with your planning, and then everyone else can sort of fit around it. And frankly, stabilizers are going to have the biggest challenge with the retreat, or with the working from home, working remotely sort of thing. Organizers will do just fine, probably for a while. They want to know the logic of what's going on and why the decision's made. So it might be, hey, the schools are closing. We know you need to be, we don't there's no care, there's no childcare. So we understand most of you have to probably be at home or figure that out anyway. So please try to accomplish these things while you're home. Expect that people won't work as much, because frankly, most remote work rules say that you don't get to work from home if your children are home with you, because if you have kids, you can't get anything done if you're the primary care provider and you have your children in the room, no matter how old they are. I have an 11-year-old. She's a dream, but she still needs attention throughout the day, lunch, whatever is happening. So know that your people will not be that productive, and you need to plan for that. So if you're working with outside contractors, if you're working with, if you're supply people, if you have, let's say that you have commitments, like I see Kate's on, she is the executive director of CASA. So there's like court dates and actual things that people have to show up for. So, how do you communicate out? How do you stay in touch with those people, those external people, and then translate that back into your team? And also keep tabs on how your team's working, because if you have to deliver something and you're going to be late, then you have to be able to manage that relationship too. So if you're sort of in that role of looking out and looking in, then you really have a lot, your whole life will be communication management during this time. I talked to a client yesterday. He works with the board, and they're owned by a private equity firm, and he's got a huge amount of it's about a $250 million business. He's working down the chain. And so he's like, literally, he sounded just exhausted. And he's this like super high performing guy, but he's literally trying to keep his shit together and everyone else's shit together at the same time. So it is going to be exhausting, more so than it already is for most of us. Independents are going to probably be fine. The challenge with independents is you're going to have to create a structure over this remote work that is very routine and very clear and lots of communication. And they actually won't like that. They would like to be like, hey, just trust me, I'm going to get my work done. Why do I need to call in every day? That's ridiculous, or whatever. And so they'll actually probably resist all of the structure that's going to be needed around remote work. And that's probably okay. If you know they're working okay, don't expect them to show up. If they're not showing up and you don't know why, then check in with them. Because if they're a stabilizer and not checking in, that probably means they're overwhelmed and they're not processing things very well. And so it's really important to have that structure. Fixers are going to want to help people. They're going to want to solve problems, and they're going to feel when fixers can't solve a problem, they get really stressed out. That's the thing that stresses them out the most. We call it fixer burnout. So if you can, if you have a big team, maybe you put a fixer in charge of working with this team, or a fixer in charge of helping with this problem, or a fixer in charge of help. So if you can give people something to do at home that feels like they're helping solve this problem, whether it's communication challenges or reaching out to your community or reaching out to your suppliers, your commitments, that'll really help, because you are going to need help with a lot of this stuff, and recruiting people in your organization that you know will be good at this just makes sense. So I guess the take-home messages there are from planning and executing remote work in an emergency situation or in an unexpected way. You want to be thinking now about what structure you need, how long do you think you'd be out, and even if you don't know, if you say, well, we're all going to go work remotely, we'll let you know when to come back, right? That will really stress everybody out even more than they already are. So say we're going to plan on working from home for a week, and then we're going to touch base on Friday. We're going to touch base with the schools and see what they're doing, or whatever your rationale or logic is to close or send people home. So and then the most we think we'll be out is 3 weeks, but we're going to try to come back next week, or whatever the number is, because people need to know that you have your act together, even if you don't. Pretend, all right, just for the sake of them. So that's the big takeaway is have a plan for when you're leaving and when you're coming back. Have a plan for what work is prioritized, because everyone's going to be working at half speed at best, and things aren't going to get done. So what is critically important to focus on and to accomplish and get done? And then how are you actually going to keep communication channels open? Are you going to call everyone's mobile number? Are you going to email? How do you get together? Do you have a conference line? And those sorts of things. So that is critically important to understand how to support your people while they're not in front of your face, because you guys are seeing all of the people that are really panicking. And then on top of it, when COVID-19 hits your neighborhood or your community and things start closing, and then that just jacks everything up, right? So do your best to have some sort of calm, measured, strategy, so that you don't contribute to additional stress and anxiety in your people. And I guess the last question is, if my team enjoys working remotely, should I consider letting them work remotely in the future? Well, that's entirely up to your organization and your business structure. Like I said, working remotely on the regular, like constantly, is actually very difficult to build a team environment around. And so I absolutely believe in flexible work schedules and getting the work done. It doesn't necessarily mean punching a clock. As long as you're performing, that's what matters. So, if you can be flexible, if doing this in this unexpected way allows you to sort of see the possibilities for after people come back, then I think that's great. I mean, definitely leverage that interest, leverage the ability for people to be more flexible. And because you've already gone through it, you know what works and what doesn't for your organization and for your people. So take some notes, take some lessons learned when everyone gets home, or when everyone gets back to work. It tells you how I feel about work, right? It's my home. When everyone gets back to work, do a lessons learned, talk about how it went, because you want to sort of put a stake in the ground and say, we're going to go back to things as usual now. Or this is what we learned, this is what we're behind, we have to get all the schedules figured out, we have to reschedule appointments or court dates or whatever had to be sort of shelved temporarily. And so just remember that when people come back, it's good to have that break and say, hey, welcome back everybody, we're really glad to see you, we're glad this is passed. We're going to go back to work as normal, but we got to assess where we're at and move forward from here. So be sure that you do that sort of critical sort of milestone check-in with everybody to make sure everyone's kind of back. And frankly, if it's a big impact to the communities, it might be that someone got sick or people are dying from it. So it might be they are personally affected in a much more serious way than most of us will be. And so there might be some support that you need to provide for those people, whether it's connecting to your healthcare network or your mental health care network or whatever. And so be looking for those signs too for any of your people that might feel like it's sort of an overwhelming situation emotionally or physically for that matter. So I think that's all for the questions. I hope that you're all being safe and that you're all okay. My personal feeling is that I'm traveling still. We are traveling still as a company. I'm going to, there's a conference, Cappy and I are speaking at a conference that is on a cruise ship over starting Friday and going through the next week, mid next week. Our feeling is we personally are not heavily at risk, serious risk from the COVID-19, but we do recognize that it's more about the group and the population health at large, and to not be a carrier or transmitter. And so we've made arrangements to not see our parents for a few weeks after we get back, just to be safe. So there's a lot of things that you can do to live your life, but be aware and be safe. And for people that have compromised immune systems or might have underlying health issues, the number one being cardiovascular, by the way. I saw a really good article. Cardiovascular health is first, and then diabetes, and then respiratory health are the top three that you have to worry about. So if you have that, take precautions. And then if it comes to your town, or maybe it already is, because my friends at NASA Ames, no one's working, and they said everyone work from home. And so it's already happening to some colleagues of ours. And so if you're in that situation, hang in there. This too shall pass. And if you're like those of us in South Dakota that we've had a few presumptive positive cases in the region, but no major centers of outbreak yet, just hang in there. Keep your ear to the track wall. I don't know. I don't remember the analogy, but I'm sure we're all watching to see what's coming our way. So be safe, take precautions as you need to for you and your loved ones. And but if you've got a team that needs to work from home, give them the things they need to help them be as successful as possible. So thanks everybody. Have a great week. And I'm not here next week. I don't think. Shelly can update you. She's got the schedule. Meg and I are both also traveling next week. So hard to track. But anyway, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for being here.